Hey, my WGU and South College friends. Thanks for being patient with me. I know I've said I will make a video giving an update on how it's going, but truly it's just been a bit of a whirlwind over here. Starting the program, getting a lot of assignments done, and trying to find time to just take a breath because there's a lot of work involved, and I want to share a bit about that today. I also just want to share how the first month has gone because as of Saturday this week, it'll be about a month, and it's been a lot. It's been full on. So stay tuned if you're interested in all that. Okay, so about a month ago, I started, and I just started to get my feet wet by doing a couple courses at the beginning, but I soon realized that there is a lot of work involved in South College, and I don't always think that means it's challenging, over the top, difficult. It's just a lot of work, and I'll explain a bit more of that. So I started with one assignment a day, and then I switched over to 2 assignments a day. An assignment at South College can be a whole range of different things. So sometimes it's kind of like a reflection on a personal work experience, or in this case, leadership experiences, but then kind of framing that around what certain research says about that leadership theory or that leadership practice or whatnot. That generally lends to written assignments. And there are a few bigger assignments, I would say, in the courses. So sometimes there's presentations. In my case, they're just visual presentations, but they're quite comprehensive, as well as in one of the courses, there was a position paper, which took a lot of work because we had to create an annotated bibliography, and then we had to go into actually writing a strong argument towards an initiative that we were proposing in one of the classes. So I was doing both courses at the same time. In the beginning of the program, you are enrolled in 2 courses, and generally they say just work on one, but I worked on both. I personally like variation. I like things that require like layers of stimulation, and for me, jumping between the courses was one way of doing that. Though I can see how that would be challenging because sometimes I was working away and I was kind of like, oh, which example was I using from my work and leadership background in, was it for this course or this course? So I had to kind of really reorient myself whenever I was working on an assignment. But pretty soon I started to work on assignment every day for each course. And I can definitely see ups and downs in that process because there are days where, probably like it's just hard to get motivated, hard to want to do the work. But I found that it was easier actually to do work every day so that I didn't have to convince myself of, oh, should I work today? Should I not? I just knew it was going to happen. There was an overlap in the concepts between the courses. I mean, I can definitely see the distinctions between the courses, but certain examples could be reframed and kind of twisted and turned into be used in another course. And that's why I found it useful to do both courses at once if you're thinking about efficiency and kind of optimizing your time, because when you are doing this program, you cannot just write arbitrarily. You have to reference what you're writing to certain readings and theories and practices and research literature. So you collect those sources, and let's say you read an article and it talks about a certain change management principle. You can kind of find the author of that, cite the source, kind of create a database of that. Maybe you have like a separate Excel sheet for all your references, and maybe there's a point by which in the other course change is talked about, and I might be able to look at that article again that I've already read. So I found it useful to do both courses for optimizing my time. I did find it interesting that the program starts with leadership courses and it's a Doctor of Education. And I'll just explain my thoughts on this quickly. Now, I definitely understand why there are leadership courses in a Doctor of Education, because many people that get to that level are generally aiming to advance in their career, having some sort of leadership role. However, at a doctoral level, you also might be there to become an expert in your line of work. And in this case, Doctor of Education, that would be education. When starting the program, it felt a little bit jarring because I've never taken leadership courses before, and it was kind of just thrown into these concepts that were a little bit new for me, but just kind of areas that maybe I'm less interested in because I'm more interested in becoming an expert at education as an educator, and my primary interest is in delivering education. Some of the programs that I've looked at that are Doctor of Educations, they many of the times they start with a similar idea, so it's like the theory and practice of education or advanced education or critical issues in education as like that starting point. You know, many of the specializations at South College aren't leadership. I shouldn't say many, half of them aren't leadership related. So for example, there are higher education leadership, there are organizational leadership specializations, and then there are ones in teaching and learning, instructional technology, there's one in adult learning and development, and of course, you have to kind of be a leader in some way. So for me, it was kind of a little bit challenging at first to orient myself to this topic and kind of feel like I was easing into the program. I would say if you are not someone who has had a leadership role in the past and you want to do this program, I would really reflect on the informal leadership experiences you've had or leaders in your life. So maybe certain superiors or directors that you've worked with and their leadership style, and that might help you kind of prepare for these courses because you can talk about other leadership influencers in your life within some of the assignments. I also understand that they are doing this because the core courses are the same for the DBA, the Doctor of Business Administration, and the Doctor of Education, and they kind of want to streamline things. So I kind of understand why it's happening. Do I think it's the most effective way of starting a program? Maybe not, in my opinion, because like I work in education, I critique education, I think about education, and I personally would have started with something more of like the theory of educational practice. But it's okay, I could still reference my background. So the assignments are a mix of academic and professional writing, and I would say that over time, there's more of a push towards the academic writing side. So you really have to be good at understanding the latest form of APA citation, which is at this point in time, the 7th edition or 7th version. There are very small nuances or distinctions that make it different than past. So for example, now we don't use a running head, and just like where titles go, subtitles and subtitles or whatnot. You need to know all that, the spacing, the size, the margins, how you kind of have references at the end, just like where the italics go. You want to know how to do in-text citation and when to include a page number. Also, if you have multiple authors, to what extent do you not include all the authors' names versus having kind of a shorter form of that. All of that should be known before you come into the program. WGU, you did have to do this in a master's program. However, I feel like it's definitely pushed more in the doctoral program, which makes sense, and they don't really teach it. So you would have to just know APA inside out before you come in. With the summative assessments, you'd pretty much always need to include some sort of research to support what you're thinking and doing. There is a little bit of an irony because a lot of the resources that they provide you, I would say that they do kind of veer in different directions from like the assignments. Like they do relate to the assignments, but sometimes they're not always on point, and sometimes they're not always academic. Even blogs they give you, and I'm not sure why, because there is such a strong expectation to do academic writing in those summatives. So it would be nice to see a little bit more scholarly sources in their resources. Of course, they do have that at times, so it's not like it's all just random blogs you're reading. I did like that there was the use of the textbook for the first course, and I read quite a bit of it. The person who wrote it, he's really well known in the area of leadership, and I found that his work was cited in a lot of different articles, so I was glad to have that textbook to reference. The assignments do build on one another, and this is something to be aware of. I used an example in one of the courses that I found not really that complex. It was an initiative that I was kind of conceptualizing, but as the assignments kept going further and further, I was like, oh, can I use this example and keep going deeper and deeper? Because it wasn't complicated. It was a very straightforward initiative. And I was able to use it, but at one point I kind of got bored of talking about this example. And so I switched gears. That made it tricky for that one course because literally the final assignment is compounding everything you've learned. And so I kind of had to go through the course again for this new example and just do everything that I learned to kind of get that example up to speed to use it further on. So I would choose an example that there's a lot to kind of unpack. I mean, maybe don't make it so complicated. The assignments are graded very quickly, like every day. I think that these instructors have a routine. I mean, almost always they were grading around the same times of day. My one instructor, by the time I woke up, I could see she marked the assignment. My other instructor, she always marked around 5 o'clock my time in the evening. So it was actually really nice, and they give comments on everything. And I'm not sure if they're easier evaluators than WGU, but I generally didn't have revisions on most of my work. But I also know that I have pretty high standard for myself, so I try to submit work that I'm really happy about and not wanting to get resubmitted. I think the overall rigor is similar to WGU, and some people would argue that WGU isn't like the most rigorous type of education in some of the programs. There's, again, a little bit more academic writing that's involved, and there's just a lot more assignments. And I will make a video on what I mean by that exactly, but like what I did in 3 weeks is equivalent to one whole master's, I believe, at WGU, maybe besides the capstone project, but a lot. Maybe to segue, what did I complete in the last month? So within actually just over 3 weeks, I completed the first 2 courses, which I don't think is common. I had a lot of breathing room in my life. Like, I'm not teaching right now. I don't have a family. I think that what I did was a lot, but I didn't feel like I totally burnt out or anything. I kind of went at a pace that worked for me. I started to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel for the first course around the 20th. And at that point, I was like, wow, it's a lot of work that I've done, a lot of writing. And I just kind of started to plow through a little bit more. And at the very end, I was doing 3 assignments a day, just trying to get them done. And I think that did kind of push me a little bit too hard because I am kind of needing a bit of breathing room right now. Now I'm in the 3rd course, and I find the 3rd course to be a lot less work. Like, there's only, I don't remember how many, but maybe 15 assignments, could be more or less, I'm not sure. And I don't find them to be as difficult so far. I've already done 3, something around that. I do think if you've done a WGU Masters, you can definitely do this program. It's not going to be 10 times harder than what you've done before. It's going to be very similar in the workflow. However, it's a lot of work. I don't know if this program is for everyone. If you want to kind of accelerate a bit, but you're used to kind of just doing 1 or 2 assignments for a course, it's not like that. It pushes your willpower a little bit too, because you could easily drag this program out for years if you don't keep that momentum. And so far, I'm happy that I'm in the program. Curious to know how this will all pan out in months from now, how I'm going to feel, just because it's a lot and I'll be teaching soon. So stay tuned if you want to learn more about that. And I hope to make more videos on my updates. So click subscribe if you want to know more about that. Otherwise, I hope to see you in another video.